Alright everyone, it's time to talk again about the deplatforming of Infowars. This time they were kicked off by Vimeo. Now let me ask you a very, very important fundamental question. For anyone who still believes that this is primarily big tech making these decisions, do you think that Tim Cook and Susan Wojcicki or whatever, I can't pronounce her last name, got together like Zuckerberg and these people and they called up Vimeo and said, hey, in a few days we want you to ban Infowars too? Do you honestly think in a million years that the big tech leaders care what Vimeo does? It's a dead video hosting site. Dailymotion is number 2. At this point, BitChute's probably number 3, along with like LiveLeak. Vimeo and Veo and these sites, nobody uses them. They have absolutely no reason to care what is put on their site because, I don't even know how they're solvent. Other than the fact that nobody's streaming anything on their site, so I guess their overhead must be pretty low regardless of what they're actually storing. Who cares? Vimeo is like a tertiary video hosting site. It's certainly not a main competitor of YouTube or even of Dailymotion. Who cares what they do? No. This is absolutely the responsibility of brigading, which was alluded to by Mark Zuckerberg himself when he was giving the little explainer there, what was it, Bloomberg article or something. He's like, yeah, I ultimately made the decision to pull the plug on Infowars. We had to get together at a board meeting. It was very tense. I was pretending to be nervous because I'm a robot, so I don't actually have emotions. But we had to ask the question. The biggest revelation in the whole article was a passing statement that Zuckerberg had to weigh whether they were being brigaded because they were being flagged so much. So you're telling me that all of a sudden there was a massive spike in flaggings around the same time that I'm assuming the same thing was happening on other sites. So that it got the attention of the big tech execs. But they weren't the ones that originally, they're not the ones that were doing the brigading. YouTube staff members, Facebook staff, they're not the ones that were doing the flagging. No, it was some other group. Who could that possibly be? Who benefits from Infowars being mass deplatformed? Oh, that's right. Legacy media sites that directly compete and are having problems competing because they were latecomers to these platforms. They're getting outflanked completely by the alt media. That's why do you think Gavin has gone off of Twitter? Why do you think they kicked the Amazing Atheist off? They claimed that it was hate speech. Bullshit. Totally fucking bullshit. No, they probably dug back through his tweet history to half a fucking decade ago and found the one time he criticized Islam or something and then had a big stink about it. CNN ran an article just the other day. They're like, oh, yeah, some Infowars tweets actually do violate the rules. They were years old. They had to go back and search through the entire tweet line. You know why they were doing that? They were looking for an excuse to brigade them. Because CNN is itself intrinsically and centrally partially responsible for the deplatforming. I have no longer even the slightest doubt that these groups that compete with Infowars, because remember, they did a hit piece on Infowars months ago and they got some of their videos struck down. Remember that? It's always CNN. I wonder. It just doesn't make sense. How is it that CNN goes back through a library of 13,000 videos to get a few struck down? They're years old. It goes back through all of their tweets to get a few removed for violating the TOS on Twitter. And this is all happening at the same period that everyone else is being hazarded and deplatformed and having illegitimate strikes due to algorithms on every fucking platform. Who could possibly be responsible? It is the corporate media complex. They are tired of competing with us, and so they're trying to strong arm, and so they're going back on the timelines and the pages of big users. And they are going back through every video and every tweet and everything else that has ever been made. There was a suggestion just made by the legacy media in regards to pundits. And it literally told them, hey, there are tools you can use just to mass scrub your Twitter. You need to protect yourself. Because these people say bigoted things, and they know that what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and they can be targeted the same way, even if they are verified. Now we hear Twitter's charm offensive. Oh, they're going to try to softball the conservatives. Paul Joseph Watson posted this earlier. I don't think so. I think it's not a charm offensive, it's a branding offensive. It's basically, hey, Twitter is censored, yeah, so you leftists can use the platform, but we're less censored than these other groups, so don't worry, conservatives, we'll only abuse you a little. That's basically what it boils down to. No, I'm not taken in by their half-assed approach. I'm not taken in by Jack's approach. No, he's lying is what he's doing. The reason he didn't kick Infowars off is to try to get more brand loyalty because his stock is slipping. And because his site is collapsing. Facebook should have done the same. Zuckerberg shouldn't have zucked Infowars pages. He should have said, well, no, I'm not going to ban him. It's not actually against our rules. And here's the thing. A lot of creators have become vulnerable. It's like several years ago, I scrubbed a significant proportion of all my old videos. Why did I do that? Because I saw that on the horizon, the TOS on YouTube were going to change, and that some of the things that I had talked about were now in a gray area. They're simply no longer allowed on the platform. It's very funny because you have a social panic going on in which the NGOs and corporate media are trying to get these big tech sites to crack down and change their rules. So things that were once allowable will no longer be allowed. Well, how convenient is that? These creators, they don't have all day to go back through all their videos, but some idiot that works for CNN apparently does. That's what they did to Gavin. It's what they did to probably to Laura Loomer. It's what they've done to Milo, they've done it to Alex Jones and all these other people, and almost all of them do real-life journalism. That's really their priority target. Now, of course, alt tech is swiftly rising. Every creator should be on BitChute. Every creator. Mine's just unveiled, by the way, the Mines token. A subscriber had to actually send me the link to set it up because, unfortunately, what happened is I never got the email from them. I was aware they were switching over. I thought it was an automatic process, and I was wrong. There's a couple steps. You need a phone number, and then you basically opt into the program. Otherwise, you can't use the point system anymore. It wasn't that hard, though. It took like 2 minutes, but I never got the email. It was actually probably caught in the spam folder. Yeah, I wonder why that happened. No, alt tech is great. We need to stand against censorship. In the last couple of weeks, we've had a half a dozen significant users censored and abused, and in some cases deplatformed by big tech. They are not making this decision on their own. Look, Jack Dorsey is also giving you another example of the clear heads that are prevailing, supposedly. He said, well, we're going to have a charm offensive and stuff. Look, these big tech firms know that it is unpopular to kick people off when they have millions and millions of fans. Or even smaller totals. If a person has 250,000 fans on YouTube, it puts them in the top, 1,000th of 1% of users or some crazy shit. It's like there aren't that many people on this platform that have even 5-figure totals of subscribers. Twitter, it's very uncommon for someone to have 100, 200,000 Twitter followers. Facebook pages, no, usually they don't have 1 million people following them. These are big pages with lots and lots of people interacting with lots and lots of content. The big tech firms did not get where they are today, which is monopolistic, by pissing off users. They know this. It was Wild West Internet. It's like when the corporate media is responsible for this. Somebody behind the scenes is pressuring these sites. They're not doing it of their own accord. I'm sure if you could get these people in a private meeting and they had assurance that it would never leak out, they'd probably tell you the same thing. Zuckerberg would say, yeah, I don't really care if people put so-called hateful content, which most of the time isn't even that, on the site, but I can't do anything. Hey, look, I'm going to get blackmailed by the NGOs. They're going to say, hey, remove this content or we'll attack you instead. What are they doing to Twitter right now? They're reaming Twitter up and down and have been for days for refusing to ban someone for not breaking their rules because they've already been attacked by other platforms. And let me tell you also what this rises to. This is now a coordinated harassment campaign against Infowars. They got so tired of competing that they're trying to rub them out of existence entirely. I wouldn't be surprised if they start trying to talk to the domain registrar for Infowars.com and getting them deplatformed even off their own website. I would not be the least bit surprised. As sort of the icing on the cake. Who's responsible? You know what Alex Jones should do? He should sue one of these sites. And he should file off and say, I want to know who's doing this. I want to know who flagged us. Who's responsible for this? Because the flags are illegitimate. I bet you anything if he did that for multiple sites, he'd find that there were very, very close similarities between the people hitting them in all these sites. I bet you'd find that a lot of those IPs trace back to ShareBlue. I bet you'd find Media Matters, People for the American Way. I bet you'd find a lot of IPs associated with craptivists. I bet you'd find some associated with NGOs, and I bet you'd also find some coming from the offices at CNN. I'm not even joking. I think that's what you would find. As far as I know, there was no public, grassroots, or even organized campaign to attack Infowars. As far as I know, there was never an organization on a Discord server or Reddit or something, because by now, it would have been public knowledge that it had happened. If that had happened, if it was like a normal brigading, normally brigading is on some Discord or Reddit page or on 4chan post or something, a link is put there. It's basically, we don't like this person, we're going to have some lulls, or this is craptivism or whatever. We're going to mass flag their material, see what happens. It's very public. You know that it's happening. Word will get out because it's being publicly posted. Someone associated with the server or associated with the subreddit or who is on the 4chan post will screen cap it and give it over to the person being targeted. If they have any fans at all. If it's a larger, there are millions of Infowars fans. So you would know by now. This, though, took place in private. Therefore, it's not a normal brigading campaign. This is a behind closed doors sort of, hey, this person's making too much trouble. We need to bend their knees backwards a little bit, so to speak. Break some kneecaps. That's basically what it boils down to. And it wasn't Big Tech doing it. Big Tech doesn't brigade. Who was responsible for it? Who did the mass flagging and who called them up and said, hey, this is really offensive material. You need to let him go. It was NGOs in the corporate media. And it's targeted and it's a harassment campaign. Look, if this were a normal group of people, if the creators of YouTube got together and said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to target CNN or something. We're going to mass flag them across the whole internet. At some point, it becomes a harassment campaign. CNN's not a really good example. More likely a pundit, a person who does, lamestream journalism. They would probably do a write-up and say, well, I'm being harassed and trolled by these evil bigots and stuff. Yeah, you are. Infowars is being harassed by their corporate competitors right now, and Big Tech is failing to defend them. What Big Tech should be doing is giving them their accounts back and saying, hey, in retrospect, we shouldn't have taken them down because the people that are actually complaining are, number one, a small minority, and number two, they're being paid to do it. That's what Big Tech should do. They should be following Twitter's example with regards to this. And not just Twitter's example with that, they should be following the example of the more monarchist side of the internet at large. It's growing rapidly. It's doing that for a reason. Look, people want excitement. People want to be occasionally challenged. The vocal minority that is offended by everything will always be offended no matter how many people you kick off your websites. You could kick off every political commentator on YouTube. They would simply find something else to be offended at. ASMR artists or sports enthusiasts. Or maybe they'd be terrified that their children are going to watch gardening videos or something. They will find something to be offended about because they're bored people. And as for the NGOs and stuff, they're not your friend. They've always been your competitors. They hate you, and they're trying to destroy your websites. That's essentially what it boils down to. The Big Tech should expose these people for what they are. That's about all. Peace out.